I'm going to show how to do a Turing reaction diffusion effect using Affinity Photo. And I'm going to use procedural textures for a couple parts of it. The reaction diffusion system can be simulated by applying a low-pass filter and then doing a threshold step and then applying a high-pass filter. So I saw a couple examples on the internet and I thought it looked pretty interesting, but when I tried to implement it in Affinity Photo, I ran into a problem. So Affinity Photo has both a high pass and low pass filter, but the threshold effect is given here as a adjustment layer. So you can do a threshold, but what you need to do this effect is to set those up in a macro. You can't really put an adjustment layer as a macro, so you can't do it, but here's where the procedural texture comes to the rescue. We're going to start with a 1024 by 1024 pixel layer. And to get started, I need some sort of pattern to apply the diffusion process to. So I'm going to use a procedural texture to generate that. I'm going to select procedural texture. I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to assign it to red, green, and blue. And I'm going to start with VAR equals V equals vec2 of Rx comma Ry times A divided by W. And then I'm going to create another variable, and this one is for cell noise. N1 equals cell noise of V dot X and V dot Y. And then that also has a third parameter, B, which tells you how many points you have in your cell noise. So I'm just going to show what the N1 cell noise looks like. I have to add my custom inputs, and I'll just set that to 1 for now. This at 0. So I'm going to bring this up to, I guess, 10. And then I can, if this is at 0, I just have a regular array. And then as you increase this, sort of moves them about randomly. You can, it finds the nearest neighbors depending on how many you have selected. So I'll just leave that at 1 for now. And that looks okay. I could run that, but more typically, the reaction diffusion system is run on a series of dots. So I'm going to start with that. So in order to get that, I'm going to apply a saturation on this. And I'm going to multiply by C. So then I'm going to add another real variable C and increase that. And I can see that it's making my dots smaller and higher contrast, which is sort of what I want. I want a black dot with white all around it. But as I increase this, they sort of get smaller and smaller. So I want to have another factor that allows me to adjust for that. So I'm going to subtract off D and put a D down here. So now as I bring up D, the dots get bigger. So that looks pretty good. And I'm going to apply that. I called this Turing Dots, and I can see that when I got this to look exactly the same as my other procedure, it showed up, the name sort of popped in there. All right, so I'm just going to apply that. And now I have to set up my 3 steps. So I have to have a low pass filter, and then I have to do the threshold effect, and then I have to do a high pass filter. All right, so low pass filter and high pass filter are built in as filters. So I'm just going to use the Gaussian blur and the high pass filter for those. But I need to create another filter for my threshold. As far as I could tell, I couldn't find any other filter that does a threshold, but I can do it with the procedural texture filter. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to create a new filter. I'm going to add it here, assign it to all 3 channels. I'm going to take the average of R, G, and B to get started. So the average of R, G, and B looks like that. And then I'm just going to saturate that. So I'm going to multiply it by a factor, an A factor, which will be a real value. And then I'm going to have a B factor. I'm going to put this in parentheses and subtract off a B value that goes from 0 to 1. And it'll work best if it's around 0.5, 0.4. I'm going to leave it around 0.4 for now. Okay, so there's my A. I'm going to bring that up to about 6. Sometimes when you try to do the reaction diffusion process, it doesn't work. And so you have to have everything set just so in order for this to work properly. I'm going to bring the B value, the offset, down just a little bit. You can see it found my threshold function right there. And so, yeah, so that'll be, so I've got this filter set up and it's ready to go. So I already have it saved. And so let's go ahead and do the macro now. To start, I'm going to start recording my macro. I go to filters. I go to Gaussian blur. I set that to 5 pixels and apply it. So it's gotten blurry. Next thing I'm going to do is go to my procedural texture. I'm going to choose the threshold filter that I just created. And I'm going to set this to 6. This one is a little bit below half. I'm going to apply that. And then the last thing I have to do is go to filters. I'm going to go to sharpen and then high pass. And then this is set to 10 pixels. So I want the high pass filter to be greater than the Gaussian blur. It seems like it starts to fail if high pass is smaller or the same size or smaller than the Gaussian blur. So I have it 2 times larger, so I'll leave it like that and apply that. So I have my 3 different effects, and I've recorded that as a macro. I can stop now. Now I'm going to go and click the play button, and it'll apply each of these 3 effects one after the other. Okay, so there's the first time, second time. I'm just going to click on this, and it'll go through. Now, the more pixels that you include, the thicker these lines will be. So if I have my Gaussian blur set up to 10 and this one set up to 20, it'll be about twice as thick. The lines will be about twice as thick as they are here. Okay. Now I could do a final pass of, like use this procedural texture to increase the contrast one more time at the end. But I sort of like to add an adjustment layer, and I'm going to add this high contrast one to give it this look, which I kind of like that. All right. So I'm going to go and try changing these and see what happens. So I'm going to change this one all the way down to 2, and I'm going to change the high pass now up to 5. Now it would be nice, I wish I could change this one, but I can't. The only thing I could change is the opacity. So I can't change that one, but I can change the other 2. So I'm just going to apply that directly now to this pattern and see what happens. So as I do that, it starts changing. It's going to make these smaller, and I'll go until I get the new pattern. Okay, and after a while it'll stop sort of merging together. You'll get this. Now I'm going to try changing. I'm going to make my high pass 20. and see what happens with that. Okay, so it's starting to change, and I sort of like these that are intermittent between the two because you can get some more interesting shapes, more interesting patterns, I think, sometimes when they're not just as you're transitioning between the different shapes. Okay, there's that one. Now I'm going to try changing this one. So that's what happens if I set this all the way up to 20. Let's try that. So now, as I change this one, it's just sort of fading away, and it doesn't really do the Turing effect. So if these are the same size, it doesn't work. But if I bring this down now to 15, let's see if that will work. Nothing yet. So let me try 10, see if I can get that to go. Okay, now it's starting to do it. And so, yeah, you sort of have to have, seems like you have to have the high pass set larger than the Gaussian. Now once I've got some contrast there, I could probably bring this down to, let's say 12. Let me check what this one is, 10. Let's see if that will work. Okay, so that one is starting to fade out. And so I don't think that one will converge to a Turing pattern. I need a little bit more gap there. Let me see if a 15 will work. Now, I would like to be able to play with my procedural texture on these because that will also influence the result that you get. I can do that, but I sort of have to reset the whole thing. So I'm going to start over with the blur, Gaussian blur at 5. Oops, I gotta record this. So I'm going to do that again, Gaussian blur at 5. And then I'll do this one, and I have it saved here as threshold. So that's what that looks like. I could bring this up a little bit. So I'm going to bring this down to 4 and just leave this. I want to have a fair amount of contrast on that and see if this will work now. I'm going to add my other filter as a high pass here, and I'll just leave that at 10. So usually it works pretty well if those two are, if the high pass is twice as much as the Gaussian blur. So I got that recorded. So now I'm going to see what happens when I go through this. Okay, it's close to fading out, but not quite. So it's taking a long time to converge, and I think it's going to actually converge here. But it is taking a lot longer with these settings. It's taking quite a bit longer to converge. And I'm just clicking the play button over and over and over again. So I'm not too fond of that. I could try, I'm going to try making this bigger and see if that helps. So make that bigger. Yeah, that looks like it's converging faster now. So converging faster, a little bit different pattern. Yeah, I love how they sort of decide they want to merge together when they do that. Yeah, so it's sensitive to all three of these different filters. It's pretty sensitive, the end result that you get with these. You could do some other stuff with this. For instance, I could put some text on here like that, and then create a new layer, merge visible, turn these off. I'm going to reset this. I'm going to record Gaussian blur at 5, and I'll do my threshold effect. I'll just try it like that, and then I'll do my high pass. At 10. That looks like it'll work. So I've got my macro recorded, and I'll start applying it, and you can see my letters are going away. I'm going to bump up my gradient on top of it and turn it on here. There we go. So that's how you can do a simulation of Turing's reaction diffusion process using Affinity Photo. Let me know if you have any comments or questions, and thanks for watching.